So now I'll just introduce you to our next speaker, Mr. Jay Prakash. He's going to talk about creating and nurturing a team of agile champions. Can we have a round of applause for Mr. Prakash? Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, guys. So we also have Ramesh along with me. We had an original plan of doing a combined presentation in 1 hour slot due to some changes. I think this slot was 45 minutes, but still he's going to share some of his insights from that topic and maybe do an activity towards that. So let me just get my clicker. Session from the morning.
Really good. Nice.
Energetic. Okay. So one of the major reasons which fascinates me and excites me to come back here again and again. I'm a regular visitor of this forum from almost 6-7 years, 5 years at least. I was there in the initial gatherings, and then after some gap, I'm coming here regularly, almost every 2 or 3 months. So one of the major reasons which excites me is about your passion, the quality of people here, the quality of discussion. And I'm pretty sure you are here because you are also in the journey of becoming a champion, as a champion in your own perspective, right? So how many of you here are regular visitors of this or any other forums? Sure. I also see some of the faces which are here. So this topic I've presented in a couple of webinars and in the recent scaling annual meetup organized a month back. And this is going to be an experience sharing. And through that experience, I've started sort of evolving a model. And I think it's shaping up well, and I thought it's good to share with other people who are in the leadership roles. Okay, and by leadership I don't mean CXO of a company. You could be a Scrum Master, you could be a leader, or the fact that you come here, you are a potential leader and a champion in that journey. So you could probably use this as a starting point and evolve something on your own to groom champions around you. It could be your teammates, it could be your clients if you're in the consulting space, or anyone in the agile community. Right? So that's the whole intent of coming up with this model and sharing this with all the participants. So I'm not going to structure it, but let's look at this question. Who is a champion? Any ideas, thoughts? Feel free to jump in. Yes.
One who is persistent.
Persistent about something? Okay. Nice thought.
Seeing both sides of it and actually successfully achieving something. So, feel ups and downs and just get figured out way to.
So the one who is willing to go through this journey, up and down, and then still be focused on your goal. Choose a field. In a chosen field, that means focused. Okay.
A person who believes in something
Okay.
and is willing to convince others to try it because he has seen the benefit.
Sure. Okay. That's yeah. All are champions. All are potential champions. All champions. Which one?
So that is respect to you are not a champion. We are a champion.
Exactly. You can say champion in you. Exactly. That's where I truly believe that every person is a potential champion.
One who excels in his field.
Yep. Yep.
One who has a right attitude.
Right attitude and focus and I think persistent effort. Right. So I call that person, each one of us, including myself and you, as a potential champion. One who cares, is passionate about something or some things and is willing to make things happen by taking the journey. He's a potential champion. Now, in the rest of the presentation, I would be, I think, wearing two hats, or I be at least presenting the topic from two perspectives. If you are a leader who is in the process of creating some champions to attack a problem, let's say agile transformation. You are one of the agile leaders, senior coaches, or a budding coach who want to create more champions and together solve a problem. That's one hat to wear. The other hat is if you are the other side, you are a budding champion. You are in the process of becoming a champion. And the points that I'm going to share will be applicable for both the hats. Some of them are applicable for one dimension. I'm going to call it out when I'm speaking leader. So let me refer that person as a driver or a leader. Then I'm going to have a coach who's building other champions. Otherwise, I'll just simply call it champion. Okay, potential champion. So this is my meaning, and I'm definitely I want to highlight that you're passionate. Not just passionate, you're also willing to be in the action. Because a lot of us have good intention and passion, but if you don't go through that action mode, you won't be a champion. Similar to an athlete or who, right? They go through rigorous cycles for a long. So a champion, so that was potential champion. This is a champion one whom you choose to make as a driver or a leader. That means everyone has a potential, and we have to just identify, because we cannot really focus on all when you are driving as a leader. So obviously you can look for certain characteristics or signals and the adopters, right? Or those who are very much eager, and then work on them to make them a champion. And I'm really speaking this from a necessity, right? We are not in the just as a plain business of going and making someone a champion. When you are faced with a real transformation where all of your agile initiatives, like Scrum adoption, XP, whatever you are trying to say, that should result in your meeting your business objectives. If you are in that business, you need a team. You cannot drive it as a leader or a hero, one person. You need to build and grow more leaders. So in that process, it's a leader's responsibility to choose who qualify for that, who display the characteristics that I'm going to list down, and then really make it happen. Okay? So that's a basic understanding about my concept of champion. So, let's say we get into an engagement in your own company or in some other client's place where you have to begin this journey, right? You have to identify certain key potential champions, and then you'll have to get into the journey of making them the real champions. How do we identify? What are some of the tasks? So I think if you're any person who is trying to implement Agile in more than one team, you will have your experiences. So shout out, how do you identify those champions? Sure. Very disciplined in day-to-day activities. That means it displays a person's seriousness, a commitment to whatever you do.
Motivated. A person who comes and believes in change, he has a willingness,
Sure.
and has that's what I mentioned, the attitude. That actually is a very promising thing, so that we can identify those things.
Sure. So if I were to draw out key points, you should first believe in what you're doing,
Yes.
and also show the willingness to spread it to the other people.
Someone who is constructively disruptive.
Constructively disruptive. Okay, this is really disruptive. So, any example?
Who is willing to take chances? Who is willing to, when he believes, he takes chances. He's not, afraid of failure.
Sure, exactly. So that's one of the important parameters, because when you're trying to do something, some of those things could. And if you really care and believe and you have a conviction, then you go for it. You could go this way or that way, and then you should be ready to face the consequences and then move on. So that's an important attribute. Yeah.
One who is realistic or near realistic in his goals when he sets his goals. Because when he realizes something in a realistic manner, he will have accurate goal setting points. That means he's more willing to achieve those goals rather than putting them up or keeping on artist goals. So what happens is near realistic or realistic goals are something which sets the champion's point. That is the way to hire.
Sure. Yeah, I would definitely that. So it's not about just having those goals in the beginning. You should be willing to revisit them from a realistic point of view again and again, because it's a journey. You don't know how it happens. And those who are willing to go through that journey where you may have to change your own priorities, change things. Same thing happens at the org level also, right? If the business priority is that you are in a journey or something, you could very well also move towards that, align your own journey towards that. You should have that flexibility in your goal. Okay. So, I think if you attended the Scrum Bangalore meetup about 3 meetups before, I guess, right? There was one person from Philips, I forgot his name, he had shared some points about a book called 3 Tipping Point. How many of you remember? Those of you who attended that session? Yeah, there are a few hands there. So I think when he shared, he mentioned that he also had a need of identifying these kind of champions in Philips while he was coaching. I think right now, he's part of Providence. Eric, what's his name? He's there in Providence.
Nagesh?
Not Nagesh.
Who are we talking about?
The one who shared this book, Erika or someone.
Dean Elsinger.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
He had shared this. So in his need of creating champions in Philips, he was using few techniques, and apparently he found a similarity between his techniques and thoughts with this the points given here, the 3 tipping point. There are 3 laws. The law of the few, the stickiness factor, and the power of compass. I think he had made a beautiful presentation the other day. I would suggest go check out Scrum Bangalore, search for tipping point presentation. You will get that video where he explains these things in detail. So whatever he tried, they were also matching with these 3 points. So what does it say? So let's focus on one of them, the law of the few. Not everyone can be onboarded to the journey, right? So you have to identify, distinguish some of the guys who are ready today. It doesn't mean that others are not ready, but you can only work with so many people, right? You have limited bandwidth. So there are typical characteristics that these few guys exhibit. These are the ones here. Usually you find these kind of people in that few category. So someone talked about a point here, they would be knowledgeable, but they'll be very good networkers. So that means if you find one person, and that person can be your champion to spread that, whatever you're trying to say, because they are inherently good in networking. And I mean, their networking spots, your pantry and your cab, I mean, all good things can be spread. So you should identify such people who display this connector kind of capability, right? They are the social glue, very social in nature. There are a few other people whom the author terms as mammoths, where they have a lot of information expertise on some of the fundamentals, and they'll be like walking knowledge bank, and they'll be passionate about sharing, right? So you can also use them as your champions. Let's say you educate them, or if you already have, you just have to request and ensure that it reaches the right people, right? And salesmen, these are like charismatic people who just call for a session and there'll be a whole crowd. I think Scrum Bangalore is one of the charismatic meetup group which draws every time on average 60 to 70 people. Right? So there will be individual people who will have that kind of a salesman kind of a skill. And usually in an organization, you will have a combination of these. You will have a few connector kind of people, salesmen, and it's our smartness that we have to use to pick these kind of people and then build your game of transformation. Whether you're an external guy or an internal guy, doesn't matter. You cannot do it alone. Okay, so this is some small tip on how do we identify such people. But the crux of this presentation is on the rest, the model, right? That is evolving in my own experience. So, for the sake of simplicity, I have just divided them into 3 phases. So now I am speaking from, I'm wearing the hat of a leader, either as an external coach or an internal agile leader. And let's say I'm in the journey of making few champions. I'm visualizing that in 3 phases. Let's say in a tenure of 1 year, let's say you are in a 1 year agile adoption journey. I'm visualizing that in 3 phases. and the same thing can be continued for next years. So the first one I'm calling this begin, and then accelerate and sustain. Because championship is not a one-day job or 1 year; it's a long term. But we can have this model, visualize it. It will be, in totality, it will be mapped to several years. For example, you could be, you as a leader who is driving the champions, can be in the beginning stage for first couple of years in your agile transformation journey. Maybe after a couple of years, you will be accelerating. And I'm referring to again me as a leader. Now, there is a time where I speak about champion. So how will you fit in this journey after some time? And sustain, the last one. So, obviously in the beginning, you can begin only if you know the potential champion. That means you could have used any of those techniques. That was just one example. I'm sure you will have your own skills to identify the right guys. And then build a small canvas for it. Show what a canvas, how I used it in my case. And anyone remembers wax on, wax off?
Yeah, Karate Kid.
Karate Kid, yes. So when you're in the beginning mode and you're working with the champions, your goal is to get them, make them very strong on the fundamentals of, let's say, agile values and principles, Scrum values. Not really getting lost in the detailed practices. They have to be really good in imbibing the values and principles in whatever they do, and the practices will follow. So if that is your goal, in the beginning mode, you'll have to be just do this. For example, when I work, when people come with, like, let's say I want to become a passionate Scrum Master or something, my simple instruction would be, tell me or find out what is the essence of Scrum. And usually people take about 6 months to come back to me and answer, if they're really serious about it. Let's do a litmus test here. What is the essence of Scrum? Anyone wants to shout? Essence of Scrum. Do you use Scrum? Huh? Self-organizing. So you will understand essence, right? Like, let's say vanilla. You can immediately imagine it's the essence of vanilla flavors of ice cream, right? You can recognize. So I want such phrase or word, couple of words, which characters, transparency. Yes. Okay, not that this is the only right answer, but I am calling this the essence of Scrum because all that Scrum has done is created a lot of opportunities where you can do inspect adapt. But if you don't inspect, or if you don't adapt, or if you don't do both of them, no Scrum is going to help. Scrum has officially created at least those 4 or 5 opportunities in terms of ceremonies, and nothing should stop you from inspecting adapting in between, like in daily Scrum or whatever, right? But if you don't do inspect adapt, Scrum is useless. In fact, it will surface a lot of problems, and if you don't adapt, your life will be hell compared to your previous waterfall, right? Don't you realize that? So, whoever is driving Scrum, either as a leader or a team member, if they don't care about making things like that happen, then forget Scrum, forget Agile. Now, that's easier said than done. Making it happen takes a lot of rigor. You need to be able to create the transparency which is needed. You need to hold people accountable when they are not adapting, or let's say there is an impairment at the system level and team cannot do anything and leadership should do it. If they are not doing it, how are you holding them accountable? How do you create that space where a team member is empowered to hold the CXO accountable for not working on a systemic impairment? Right? That's the execution part. But essence of Scrum is inspected that. Now these are some of the wax on instruction. Jacket off, right? Dialogue from Karate Kid. That's it. Now maybe you do 10 different things. The moment we realize that they're really getting the meaning of inspected that, then they're on their own in terms of coaching Scrum or Scrum mastering, right? Then pick it up. So that's just an example, right? Maybe I think I have a few examples here. Read Agile Manifesto 100 times. Okay? This is something that we definitely do when we conduct any orientation or detailed workshop on Agile. Again, a litmus test. what is the key message that the authors of Agile Manifesto are trying to deliver for people who go through agilemanifesto.org? How many have to remember the 4 value statements still? Okay? Now, if I ask the next question, you all will just make your hands down. Do you remember the sentence which is before those value statements and after the value statements, and can you read it from top to bottom? Yes, please.
We have uncovered the things which can work better.
That way we are proposing these values. So individuals and interaction over processing tools, and the responding to change over following a plan. Working software over comprehensive documentation, and customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Last sentence.
The text, while there is values on to the right, they value the values on the left more.
Absolutely. Now, you can by heart this and repeat. I'm sure you have not by heart this. But, yeah, so I think he said that as a second one. Take the order. But yeah, so what is the message, real message? See, I think it starts with B. Who are those B? Those 17 guys, the thought leaders of software industry, Martin Fowler, Ken Beck, Ken Schwaber, Jeff Sutherland, Alistair Cooper, all those guys, right? They said, we have experimented for 15-20 years. And it's not something which happened in a day. It is a series of experiments. Some call it as Scrum, some call it as XP, some call it as DSDM, someone call it as... All those experiments, we have found something common which made us successful. So that's why they say, we are uncovering better ways of developing software and helping others do it. While we do that, we have come to value individuals and interactions and all the score, and that is the last thing. So that's a full sentence. And when do you uncover something? What do you uncover something? When we say we are uncovering, generally what do we uncover? Something is covered, something is a sacred sauce. They are talking about their success case studies. That doesn't mean that they didn't have failures. They said in all our experiments, we failed and succeeded multiple times. But today, after 15 years, in 2001, in Salt Lake City, right, we realized that there is something which is common in our approach which made all our experiments successful. And that is this. And it is at a very high level. It's about people and impact. Nothing to do with whether you're doing Scrum, Rum or XP. Right? They don't even prescribe anything. In fact, the value itself is not prescription. It's an experience sharing about commonality or common approach. Now, that's the key message that we need to really get by going to agilemanifesto.org. Now, these are some of the instructions, and that's why I might probably ask a person to go through Manifesto 100 times and get this. And that becomes your DNA when you really understand, the day you understand. Okay, so just wanted to give an elaborate example because beginning, a well-begun race is definitely more chances of you winning. So, some of the examples when you're accelerate. Now, before I look into the examples, look at this. In the beginning, we create a canvas, and in Accelerate, so in the beginning, it's all about instruction. Just do what I say in the canvas. And after you come here, I'm allowing you to disrupt, or I myself would disrupt the canvas to create some, because the moment you get to some level, it becomes composite. And unless I keep the champion on his or her toes, you will not really become a champion. You will become composite. The moment you go to the next environment, all Scrum collapses because you have not really not built your muscle on the fundamentals. So you've got to disrupt the model. That means possibly, let's say there is a Scrum Master who's fairly good at gaining confidence in managing or working with one or two teams. Suddenly put them to some unrelated teams. And that's like an example of disrupting the camp. And still he or she should be able to add the same value that he or she was able to add at the previous. Okay? So, and then unconventional challenges. So, what are some of the examples of challenges for, let's say, a Scrum Master? Regular challenges that you encounter. Did everyone need that for the ceremonies, events? Okay, that's a conventional challenge. Start asking updates. Okay. So your challenge is how to stop people asking the status report.
Making the team automatically start filling their plan
Okay.
rather than me asking them for updates.
Okay, rather than me as a Scrum Master asking for the updates, they should update for them because it is their sprint, their help, the sprint help. Okay, definitely this is challenging.
Answering the management about Scrum ceremony time.
Okay, answering the management. Yeah, or sometimes you want to push back, but you don't know how to push back. Okay, these are all conventional challenges which you can overcome if you focus on manifesto and Scrum guide 100 times, 1000 times you get it. I'm talking about unconventional challenges. Behavioral aspects. Okay. So, for example, that's the right example. Let's say you have a very dominant character, super architect who's very good, technically very competent, high valuation, but not a team player. And that is spoiling whatever you're trying to build, the self-organization value, right? How do you deal with such person? That's a tough challenge. Now, as a coach or a leader who's driving, I have 100 ways to create similar challenges, even if they don't exist, so that you build the muscle of the challenge. And that's what I have done and I've seen other great leaders doing when you're building a challenge. Okay, that's an example. Any other tough challenges? Let's say an impairment, systemic in nature, teams can't solve it themselves. It requires senior management influence. And let's say it is lying in the door of your CXO for past 2 months. Nothing is happening. How do you do? What do you do? Okay, so those are some of the your approaches at that level. Accelerate. Now sustenance, right? In both these models, you're really too much engaged and involved and you're hands-on. And probably when you're sustained, you're allowing the person just to figure out everything themselves. You'll be mostly in the silent zone. And you have to create a space where a person can really experiment. And on a tough challenge, big challenge, can you get your CTO fired? Because CTO happens to be the bottleneck for this entire transformation. So, can you manage to do this? This would be my challenge to a Scrum Master. Now, see, again, people have a lot of misunderstanding about Scrum Master. Right? This is like a 4-year programmer syndrome. Anyone has heard about this term? Those who follow Craig Larman, in one of his talks, he talks about 4-year programmer syndrome. In India, right? You join a company, the nice blue color building, and after 4 years you're still coding, there should be something wrong. Either in your college credentials or in yourself. Right? You're still programming, not at a lead, not to become a lead. After 6 years, not a manager yet. There's something wrong. And we kill the developer inside the person. The same way, Scrum Masters, right, when they actually get into this role, they are fine with all this dealing with conventional challenges, getting more and more color sticky notes, making things visual. The moment you get these kind of challenges, oh, you know, that guy is 16 years, 20 years, and I'm just 4 years, and till yesterday I was a lead, and today I'm a Scrum Master. How do I go and make it happen, right? So you hit a wall and you stop. Now force them to play such big games. I don't think they can become a Scrum Master. Now, once you gain that competency, you could be a team member and be a Scrum Master, or you could be one of the CXO members and you can be a Scrum Master for that team, because they can also start operating as a Scrum team from the organizational strategy point. Or any of you part of large scale transformation here? When you're part of, have you seen your own internal agile transformation group getting formed? They will have their own backlog. You could be a Scrum Master for them, but how do you get things done? And you could be just a 4 years experienced guy. You could still be a Scrum Master and drive that team once you have this kind of a capacity. And as a leader, we need to build such people, such champions. So this is the model I'm suggesting at a high level. Okay. Now, what did you guys notice? Any guesses? The diagram there. That's in a language called Kanich, a variant of Japanese. Okay, more clues. I talked about the person, so I talked about martial arts. I talked about, yeah, smart guys. So Shuhari, that's meant for Shuhari, right? So basically it's a technique used in martial arts when you are teaching a student. In the beginning, 36 chamber, anyone watch that movie? Just go fill the water, just follow the instruction, and in that process you will have developed some muscles. And that's all we need to do for our champions. And when you're in half, you're allowed to do a little bit of experiment and yet achieve the final goal. And in 3, I'll not even come to your space of doing. All that I'm going to present is here's a big challenge. Get your very CEO fired, or at least CTO. If CEO is such a person, then the entire company collapses. Usually, sometimes I've seen some highly technical guys finding it very difficult to get out of agile mindset across the organization, right? So, I will not come on your way, but you know what? You can do your experiments, and I'm pretty sure you have confronting conversations. I'm here to listen to you. You can go to a bar and I can listen to all your bad and good experiences. Okay, that's all. I can provide a listening and create a silent space. And allow you to play your game complete, your own strategies, your own techniques. Once you build your muscle at that level, you can go to any other company as a change agent and bring change in the transformation. So that means you as a leader who's driving this championship model, for example, in case of me, right? Let's say I'm driving, I would be in shoe model in the process of creating a few champions for this transformation or for this agile adoption. And I will be in half and I will be in green. In every phase, my behavior is different. Right? My mode of approach, my interactions, my challenges that I'm going to engage my champions, they all will be different. I'll have to be really focused on that. So, this is some little bit of detail for that. So, let's say we are in the shoe model. What should be your approaches or agile leaders' focus and behavior with respect to your champions? So, I've highlighted something which I find has helped me and some other guys who also work with me in large scale transformation. So, you guys recognize this as a basic need? Right? So, all of us recognize this, right? Unless you earn the respect and trust of the champions, you can't do any magic. Right? And that takes an action from your side to be respectful and trustworthy. And then you can earn. And basically create an outlet for the inner strength. That means, in the beginning I said, I believe everyone has the potential to become a champion. That means I trust that you have all the capability inside. And as a coach, all I'm doing is just showing you a mirror to let that come out. Could be any person. A champion could be your manager, your scrum master, your security head, right? Security head could be your facilities head, could be a great champion by enabling a lot of information visual radiators, right? Information radiators that you do without getting your company policies as hindrances. So in my case, I think I did that with few champions by giving them an empty canvas, which I'm going to show you in a couple of minutes. Teach them the basics as an art. So I talked about basic essence of Scrum, essence of this, right? Just give them an opportunity to get good at basics, the fundamentals. And be a ruthless taskmaster. Backs on, backs up. Doesn't matter how much pain you have, better do that. Because I know the intent and I would also make you the intensity or something, right? I'm doing it for a good intention. That's how the sense of the martial art teachers do, right? And hold them accountable for their words. This is something to do with integrity and things like that, right? If you can't see, I'm in this process, I'm creating a culture of being accountable for your words and focusing on fundamentals. Unless you create this culture, cannot create any champions of that. And display high degree of integrity by walking the talk. Right? For example, if I'm coaching you on something and there is a chance if I take a shortcut, the champions would follow the same. So, no compromise on your own integrity as a leader. This is what a coach or a leader should focus on when you are in the beginning mode of creating champions. Some selected points. Just wanted to pause here and ask if you have any questions at this point. So the last point, right? So, example, let's say you're let's say budding Scrum Masters on the importance of for every ceremony or event. That means it's very crucial to think about how do I make every event lively and really an event, right? Not a dull and boring meeting, right? You talk about all these things, and when you are supposed to drive something and you yourself are not prepared, you lost on your integrity, and that displays and that influences. So you can't really make a champion. So no way, no compromise. So in many cases we have done this at the cost of losing jobs, losing my job as when I was an employee and losing a business when I'm an entrepreneur now. We've done it. I mean, if we have to walk out of an engagement, we've done that. Some cases. Right? Of course we have to balance. But when it comes to integrity and things, no question. Only then I was able to create some of the champions and they're helping me in most of my engagement. To share some of those points, how we are doing this for our own company. Okay, that's a concerning point. The next one. So sorry, any other questions? Yes.
You said a coach should be a ruthless taskmaster.
Yeah.
Would this involve or would this really require some bit of command and control?
You might sound like a command and control guy, okay, when you are being a ruthless taskmaster. You just map yourself to those martial arts movies, right? You feel pity on the guy who's doing it, but the sensei knows the intention, right? Back into software or Scrum, an example would be, right? How do you ensure that you begin an event like a sprint planning, and how do you end in a most effective manner, right? Let's say you are behind that, teaching that fundamental to your Scrum Master. Now, what is your definition of an effective ending of a sprint plan? Just throw out some ideas. Okay? Or let's ask the question the other way. What is a bad way of ending a sprint planning meeting? Any thoughts around this?
Ending a sprint planning was
Okay, are you a product owner in that role?
no, from the developer perspective.
Yeah. So basically saying if the tasks are pushed onto a developer forcefully, that means basically stories are pushed, right? That's okay. So those are some of the fundamentals we say, okay, in Scrum it's self-organizing tool. But right now my focus is the sprint planning as an event. It is something to do with the purpose of the sprint planning. So give me some examples of ineffectively.
Not many stories to take up in the.
Not having a sprint backlog ready.
Working out the sprint planning for having sprint call.
That's an example. So backlog ready, no planning will happen. I'm talking about ending of the sprint plan.
I do not have a sprint backlog to implement.
Right.
Coming out of the sprint.
Okay, so you're talking about sprint backlog, not the product. Okay, so that means you don't do task breakdown and you don't produce your sprint backlog. Okay? And you talked about sprint code. That's an important point. At the end of it, we don't have a goal for sprint. If you don't even have a goal, what do you stare at when you look at your bundle chart? How do you measure? If you don't even have a sprint goal, how do you measure? Now some people say, yeah, we have total points, right? So that's a debatable question.
In a theme-based sprint, if the theme is not covered, so what is the theme? If you are not coming up with a theme itself, then it is a failure. Sprint
Yeah.
planning meeting itself is a failure.
Okay, so that's somewhat related to goal. So I'm connecting to your question with this. So here is an ineffective way of ending a sprint plan. Okay, so let's say I'm a Scrum Master. Okay, so congrats guys, we successfully finished this sprint plan, sprint 17. And in this sprint, I think you guys have agreed to work on 10 stories worth 50 points. And all of you did a fantastic job of task breakdown, asking questions. That's it. Thank you. And if I end this, okay, there is still ineffectiveness. Do you know why? I didn't talk about the goal. I only talked about some numbers, right? And even if I talked about the goal, some people will put the goal as working on 10 stories worth 20 points. That's not a good way of getting a sprint back. For me, this is a better way of putting it. Okay guys, so congratulations on successfully completing this, and in this sprint we are allowing the customers to print their stuff in faster 5 minutes. This is a value added. And another value would be to print different types of images, right? I'm talking about the value added, business value. And by the way, we're going to do this by working on these 4 stories, which are worth 20 points. Okay, that's an added information. Now, connecting to your question, right? Until a Scrum Master or someone doesn't get this, and we give it the repetitive instruction, how much ever he or she does, I said this is ineffective. Go, repeat. Next sprint, in fact, if you're a Scrum Master, I'll make you facilitate 5 other team sprint time. And let's see if you get it, right? That's an example of being a focused taskmaster. Even if the person has to manage 10 other things, nothing doing you have to do along with this.
We just want to relate an example. If you go to army, one of the exercises they do is they hold their fingertip on the floor, rotate 5 times, get up, put a boxing gloves, hit it. And this is done every day. And all these guys who practice it, they think, what's wrong with this guy? They're anyway not boxers. But the real value is gone when you have an enemy who beat you, you fall down, you never fall. Keep your finger, turn 3 rounds, get up and hit. That is the value add that you get when you practice it correctly.
That's a very good example. And that's why you can learn this from sports, martial arts, and these kind of things, and apply it back in your Scrum. And I've been grilled, and whatever phrase you want to use, like that, by my mentor. And because my Agile experiences is more in non-software, okay, than the software. Though I'm a software engineer, techie by nature, coding things, I'm in the Agile space for the past 11 years. But I have been using Agile in the non-software engineering world, when there's examples of social engineering, public policy, education, improving the primary education quality in Karnataka. I'm working with linguists, politicians, bureaucrats. We apply all of this without using any of the jargons. That is where I got drilled in those sessions, and some of my muscles have been built. The same thing, nothing to do with your software. In fact, Scrum Master, I think last meetup there was a question, difference between Scrum Master or manager or something. My answer was, if you want to be an effective Scrum Master, the more you're away from the software, the better you are. It's a people business, nothing to do with software and technology. So that's what it was. A question?
I have a question maybe it's not related to this topic, but how to deal with a person who is extremely powerful, maybe a Scrum Master who is in the organization for a long time, who believes whatever he does is correct, and he is like passively indirectly being the ranger. So,
what's your role in that situation? What would be your role?
I'm an agile coach who is stepping in to
Okay.
an organization which is well adapted to this particular Scrum Master. Maybe I could term as a command.
If your code is a piece of cake, and we can have a detailed discussion later. But the challenge would be if you're a team member, how do you expose that person? Okay, that's the challenge. And we can build the muscles of team members to expose it. In fact, Scrum, if implemented effectively, those kind of people would pop up like popcorns. The key is transparency and a simple process, how it reaches the topmost guy. If the topmost guy happens to be that kind of a person, then you have to look for the next organization. It's about in such organization. I mean, there are possibilities. Then you should be willing to take the risk of losing your own business and whatever. Okay? So yeah, but the explanation we could do it offline. Okay, so let me finish these 2 sections, the detailed sections. So when you are in the hard mode, that means people have gone in the basis here with the accelerating mode. So provide access to their blind spots. What do you mean by blind spots? Any idea?
You need to turn your shoulder.
Sure. So something which is hidden, that means you know that it is there in you, but just that you don't realize that you already have it. It could be a positive thing, it could be a negative. Negative thing could be influencing your work. or a positive thing you are unable to make use of it. I can just quote an example, right? One of the ladies who had who had joined as a Scrum Master a couple of years back in Hyderabad, one of the transformation engagements, she was working with me, joined as a Scrum Master, external Scrum Master, and after a few conversations and a couple of months, she was very passionate about applying her background and Scrum Master knowledge to multiple teams, but she was hesitant to face multiple teams or new set of teams and things like that. Then initially she got over it with a lot of work. Later, so in the retrospective forum, she was very passionate to make every retrospective fun and lively and effective, which really puts the team to the next phase of improvement. But she was struggling. How do we make it? Every time we go, okay, it's the same old three questions. Now I also tried a couple of techniques from innovationgames.org, all those things, right? She tried thinking board, whatever, right? You use. But still, she was not able to make those effective. But one of the strengths she had was that she was very good in drawing and visualizing, and she generally used to play with the kids to actually come up with some new ideas. And I came to know this in some informal conversations. So I just offered her, why don't you design some new retrospective games yourself, anyway, since you're good in visualization, and drive a new game so that you break the monotonous behavior of every retrospective and make it effective along with your skills that you already have. That is something like a blind spot. People were struggling and unable to use their own strengths. So after some time, she got it, and I think Deepak also knows. She recently, she started speaking in various conferences about retrospectives, and so that's it. Right? That was her journey. I think my journey with her for about 6 months, and I even challenged her to write a book on retrospectives. So I said, yours should be the next book after Esther Derby. Esther Derby's annual retrospectives, and she has very pragmatic, I think she used a term called retrospectives based on situational something, right? Situational retrospective. Based on the context, you design a game. Right? And be driven by the fundamentals of a retrospective. So that's an example. So provide access to the blind spots. I was told that I have about 10 minutes to complete, and Ramesh has 2 minutes to share. So let me just rush through and we can be there for offline discussion. Challenge them on fundamentals and help them deepen their understanding. Push them to challenge the status quo of themselves, their own status quo, and the organization or team status quo. Unless you push, they won't challenge. You as a leader, you need to push. And because you are pushing, it also is your responsibility to allow them to experiment. Because some things, they don't know how to do it. So, embrace failures. They could fail or they could succeed. Create a space where they are okay to experiment. And most of the unconventional. And exhibit no tolerance or culture for integrity breaches. The first mode, I was talking about my own integrity. Now here, the moment you're out of integrity, forget it. You'll get punishment. Same thing becomes 1,000 times. Right? Whatever, right? So no tolerance culture for integrity breaches. That means you go on breaching every team and then you display a behavior which is against the Scrum values, against the Agile values. No way you can become a champion. So that should be my mode of the content. The last phase. Just create a space and step up. You have no business to do that. And you are in the sustain mode as a leader. Because they've already built their muscles and fundamentals, they've tried a couple of unconventional challenges. Now, just give them a big challenge, step back. Provide them listening to have all confronting conversations. You never know, right? When people go behind a big game, a lot of things would come up. And you just have to provide a listening to them. That's all. So, and from both the sides, you might also confront because you might have underestimated or overestimated, whatever, right? You will have your own confronting conversation about the person. You would have thought, oh, this guy is not going to make it. Struggling. But you might have a pleasant surprise. Confront that. And as a coach, as a leader. And the experience of silence. That means not really getting into the it will be tempting for you to actually go and help and protect. You have to keep your riches and other things in control, right? So that's the example of a silence. Okay, last few slides. So this is something that I've come up with. Now, this is from you as a champion. If you're wearing a hat of a champion, how would this work, right? So you remember I talked about Shuhari. Now, the key point to distinguish here is, in the previous model diagram, the full diagram, you as a leader are in Shuhari phase. Usually that's long term. Now here, as a champion or a budding champion, you have various items that you want to achieve, various dimensions, right? I have categorized them into something of this sort. You're already good at something and you can build on them and make them better. For example, in that case where she was already good at designing retrospectives and she was caring for this, and you can build on top of your skill and make them be the best facilitator for retrospective in the world. That could be our challenge. Okay? So maybe in some items, her status could be already higher and maybe you're pushing him to read on that particular item. Another item, she could be in the half. So at any point of time, you will have different status here and you will keep on moving from one state to another. As a coach, you'll be facilitating that. So you can start with this canvas, build few initial items and then keep on building it. Okay, so that means there will be Shuhari cycles for each of the items for champions. That's the difference. So here is an example that was filled by, I think, a couple of my teammates who were working along with me, and I think I've combined them just to show you some examples here. Combined few items from both the team, both the members. Influencing skills. And I think there was an example where asking powerful questions. I think in the last meetup also someone from Provider spoke about it. Powerful questions, life coaching skills, how do you acquire them? And it could be in the shoe state and it requires some time to go into hustling. That's an example you could. So as I mentioned, right, this is just the starting point because it was shaping up as a model in my last rigorous work in last 3 years to work with champions. I thought I'll just make it and make it available and you can build on top of it. And this is for again some curious people. So if you go to Wikipedia, you see this Shuhari. So in the shoe, you are in the protected, right? Mostly protected environment, just following instructions, fundamentals. How you can start detaching, you do some experiments, break the tradition, and here you are completely out of your system, you are on your own. That's the meaning that has been given. Another explanation from Martin Fowler in his day, he explains that Shuhari is a technique which is frequently used in this one, and here is what it is. You can read it for yourself. In this kind of a mode, for example, you could be driving agile values and principles even for a waterfall team. You don't have to use Scrum. You can still be good in whatever you're doing, but ensure that you have shorter cycles and respect for people, collaboration. You're already agile. You don't need to use Scrum, for example. That's going to make sense. Okay, so just as a last point, can I use 1 minute?
You got time, 5 minutes.
Sure. So Ramesh probably could share how we are using this in our own company as a consulting firm to build our champions whom we need, right? Because we are trying to apply that and learn from that.
Good afternoon. So, in our company, we look for associates basically. So when we do that, what we look for is learnability, as he was telling in shoe phase, basically. Learnability of a person. I mean, he should be able to, should be having what you call very intense for learning, intense for learning. And
so strong that Ramesh is even finding the right words again, because we don't generally encourage people who are not serious. I mean, we come to know that after soon to actually invest our time to meet them formally. That's why.
Learnability, then temperament, basically have a good temperament, because normally when the person is a Scrum Master, many challenges are in his face basically. So you have very good temperament, then perseverance in final stage basically. So that's what we look for
talk about, so for example, whenever we are foreseeing some pipeline of assignment where we require people,
we make it a point that we meet the person physically on an informal occasion, coffee day or wherever, try to understand the overall personality of a person and how strong or committed he is for his own career. And I'm sure, I think ProAwareness also follows similar thing. I've been seeing Rahul from many years, and that's how he's built such a beautiful team here, which is responsible for creating the space for you, right? So it's an investment from you. Whether you're a leader, individual consultant, an organization, there is no other way to do this. I think Ramesh is very phenomenal in making those n number of calls, filtering and scheduling them, and again honoring our own words, making time in our busy engagements and carving out some time either on the way, instead of being on a traffic for 2 hours. You could also get your person on the car and do both of this and both the things. And so we do such things, and we balance work life and things like that to do that. So that's about it. This is something that this is an experience that I want to share from past 3-4 years, which is evolved as a model now and working on large scale transformation. That's it. Thank you guys. Any questions? Last questions?